Welcome back. You're watching The Devi Show. Before the break, part one of our look into new formula Eltroxin, which is used in the treatment of hypothyroidism, a really complicated condition to treat. Some patients are having adverse side effects after using the new formula. In part two, what happens when there's no alternative? In search of answers, the group of women discovered that South Africa was one of the last countries to receive the new formulation of Eltroxin, which has been systematically rolled out in first world countries since 2009. Dr. Bhana explains that this new formulation was the result of improved drug technology to increase the stability of the drug by changing the binding agent, which was lactose.
So when something is bound with lactose, that compound is not as stable as we'd like to be. But that was old science.
While the active ingredient is still the same, it's speculated that the new fillers may have changed the uptake rate, meaning dosage needs to be adjusted.
Which means as long as their doctor then reassesses their TSH 4 to 6 weeks from now and readjusts it, it should be fine.
Yet, as the group of women searched the net, they discovered that around the world there's been a groundswell of patients and members of the medical community insisting that the controversial new formulation of Eltroxin is not equivalent for all patients. Pressure and court action from advocacy groups in some of these countries forced the big pharmaceutical companies to change back to the old formulation for what appears to be an indefinite period of time. Would you immediately go back to the old formulation of Eltroxin if it comes back on the market?
100% without hesitation. Even if you had to give me one now, I would take it.
In Israel, a class action lawsuit forced the drug manufacturers to pay out compensation of 47.5 million shekels. That's nearly 216 million rands. Leah and her group have tried to convince the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority to help them. She also approached the Human Rights Commission.
Because I felt like my hands are tied. SAHPRA does not want to help. I've contacted the SA Medical Council. They reverted me back to SAHPRA. We've had a conference call with SAHPRA. They refuse to acknowledge that there's anything wrong with the medication. They just do not want to help us.
Michelle has attended Zoom meetings with Aspen, which manufactures Eltroxin under license in South Africa, but they aren't budging.
Daar is nie intensie om die ou formulasie terug te bring nie. Ons het die ou formulasie uitgefaseer omdat die produk minder stabiel is as wat ons op hierdie stadium met die microcrystalline formulasie sien.
We approached Aspen, but they declined our interview request.
Good day, and thank you for calling Aspen.
In a holding statement, they said Eltroxin had not been recalled or discontinued in any countries, and that a letter had been sent to 21,000 healthcare providers to explain how to transition patients over a period of time.
They're saying there's nothing wrong with the formulation, we need to not drink coffee with the medication, or we need to take it an hour before, we need to actually put it in water. There's different excuses that they're making.
Aspen, in turn, directed us to the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, who has been dealing with complaints from consumers. Senior Manager of Clinical Evaluation, Tohlang Sehloho, says the regulator has received a substantial number of complaints.
I have figures from January 2020 up to October. October, November, it was about 145.
With old formula Eltroxin, did you also get complaints there?
There were complaints, but they did not spike as much as when the new formulation was introduced.
And what a lot of irate patients are grappling with is the cost of this intensive cooperation with their doctors and the price tag of expensive blood tests.
My previous blood test was 4,500 Rand, and the medical aids don't cover it all.
Michelle has been calling and writing to other big pharma companies who produce similar drugs to lobby to have them registered in South Africa so the women can at least have a choice.
The one guy said to me, it takes 4 to 6 years for SAHPRA to approve a new medicine. So even if he is willing and able to bring in his medicine from his company, then we would still have this problem for 4 to 6 years.
We have a Section 21 authorization provision. But I hear your question to say, are these people stuck? And we do understand that, and we will do all that we can.
Leah has since been trying to find an alternative to Eltroxin and has opted for the only other one available locally, Euthyrox.
But it's not the same thing. I still feel puffy in the face, my tummy swollen, I don't feel 100%, I have brain fog.
ENCA news editor Tsholofelo Shabangu took Euthyrox for 2 years and says it turned her life into a living hell.
The main one was fatigue and anxiety and constipation and insomnia.
For Tsholofelo, the side effects were even more severe than the condition itself.
So I decided to, no, this is it, because I wasn't coping at work. I wasn't coping as a mother, so I just quit.
She's opted for homeopathic remedies, diet adjustments, and vitamins to manage her condition.
I no longer feel the severe fatigue and the anxiety as compared to when I was on Euthyrox.
But Dr. Bhana strongly advises patients against taking such a radical route.
That is the single worst thing you can do. Imagine you were on a product that delivered X amount, let's say 100 micrograms. The formulation changed. In your mind, you feel, oh, things are bad. Maybe you think you got 90, maybe you got 110. When you stop it, you got 0.
All the women say they are asking for is choice. They want their lives back.
I believe that pharmaceutical companies should be held to a higher standard. When did pharmaceutical companies stop caring about the well-being and health of the patients that they are supposed to help?
They can keep the new formulation for people who are actually doing well on it, but at least give us that option of getting the old formulation back so that we have a choice.
After the break, 2 South Africans who took on the Dhaka and are still smiling. I'm not sure how.
Nervous about selling to strangers? What you